She valued me at $10. 40 years of sweat, sacrifice, and grease under my nails, all reduced to a cheap lottery ticket. She thought I was a joke, an old mechanic ready for the scrapyard. She was about to learn that some engines run best when you think they're about to blow. If you're listening to this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. I need to tell this story. I need to explain how a $10 insult changed everything, how it nearly broke me, and how I fought back. It was Christmas Eve. I was standing in my daughter Jessica's new house. It wasn't a house, really. It was a mansion. Marble floors, glass walls. It felt more like a museum than a home. Cold and hard. Everything was white, untouched. I felt dirty just standing there. The lights on the massive tree blurred. They reflected in the shiny surface of the lottery ticket in my hand. A holiday cash special. The kind you buy at a gas station when you've run out of ideas for someone you don't really care about. I stared at it, the bright red and green colors mocking me. Just moments before, I watched Jessica hand her father-in-law, Mr. Sterling, an envelope. It was thick, heavy. Inside was an $18,000 ticket. A first-class European river cruise. $18,000. I hadn't spent that much on a car in years. Mr. Sterling beamed. He was a large man with soft hands. Hands that had never known hard work. He unfolded the itinerary like it was a sacred text. "Jessica, Tom, this is extraordinary," he boomed. His voice filled the massive room. The Vienna Philharmonic. Marvelous. He didn't look at me. He never looked at me. Tom, my son-in-law, clapped his father on the back. He wore a suit that probably cost more than my monthly shop revenue. Tom always looked polished, slick. "Only the best for you, Dad," Tom said, his smile slick as oil. "You've earned it, earned it." The words stung. What had I earned? A lifetime of work, and I was still an embarrassment. Then it was my turn. The room got quiet, too quiet. The chatter stopped. The clinking of glasses stopped. Everyone turned to watch the mechanic open his cheap gift. This was the moment the insult landed. The moment they showed me my place. Tom adjusted his expensive cuffs, a nervous habit I'd noticed years ago. He wouldn't look at me. Jessica was already looking at her phone. The air felt thick, heavy with expectation. They were waiting for me to be grateful, to smile and nod. I held the lottery ticket between my thumb and forefinger. It felt cheap, flimsy. "Go on, Dad. See if you won anything," Jessica urged, still typing on her phone. Her voice was bright, fake. Her attention span for me was always short these days. I was an annoyance, a distraction from her perfect life. I looked at the ticket, then at the $18,000 cruise itinerary on the table. The difference wasn't just money. It was respect, and I had none. My chest felt tight. I couldn't breathe. The room felt like it was shrinking, the walls closing in. I was suffocating on their indifference. I'm an auto mechanic. My name is Mike. I've spent 40 years understanding how things work, how pressure builds, what happens when a system fails. And our family system was failing. It was broken, maybe beyond repair. I took double shifts. I worked weekends. I missed birthdays. And our family system was failing. It was broken, maybe beyond repair. I took double shifts. I worked weekends. I missed birthdays, anniversaries. I did it all to put Jessica through a fancy private university. I did it so she could have the life her mother and I dreamed of. A better life. A life without struggle. A life without grease. Maybe that was my mistake. I made it look too easy. And she valued me at $10. The realization hit me again. Harder this time. It wasn't just thoughtlessness. It was deliberate. A statement of my worth in their world. The laughter in the room echoed off the marble floors. It sounded sharp, cold. Tom was bragging about the wine tours they'd planned for his father. Expensive wines, expensive places. Everything had a price tag. Everything was a status symbol. Jessica smiled at me. It was a tight, polished smile, the kind you give a waiter who brought the wrong order. "It's the thought that counts, right, Dad?" she said. "Right? The thought that I was an afterthought, a footnote in their story." I looked at my grandson, Leo. He was 6. He sat on the floor, bored with the mountain of expensive electronic toys. He was building a small tower out of coasters. He caught my eye and gave me a small, secret smile. He was the only warmth in that cold room, the only real thing there. Leo still loved me. That thought anchored me. "Wow, a lottery ticket," I said. I tried to keep the bitterness out of my voice. I failed. My voice sounded rough, raw. Thanks, honey. Jessica paused. She sensed my tone. She put her phone down. She leaned in slightly, a gesture of false confidentiality. Her eyes narrowed slightly, the mask slipping for a moment. Oh, don't be like that, Dad, she whispered, her voice sharp. You're impossible to shop for. You always say you don't need anything. Then the knife twist, the justification for the insult. Besides, we spent a fortune on the house renovations we had to prioritize. Prioritize the word hung in the air, sharp and ugly. I was at the bottom of the list. Below the marble floors, below the expensive wine. I was the one who co-signed their first car loan when their credit was shot. I was the one who spent countless weekends fixing their European sports cars, saving them thousands in repair bills. I kept their flashy lives moving. I was the engine that powered their facade, and they treated me like a spare part. Now, I was a $10 obligation, a chore to be checked off the list. The realization was cold, hard, final. It's fine, Jessica. It's great, I lied. The lie tasted like ash in my mouth. I couldn't look at her. I looked at the floor, the marble floor that was more important than me. I folded the ticket and put it in the pocket of my worn jacket. I finished my drink. The expensive scotch burned my throat. I said my goodbyes. I walked out of their mansion, back to my small, quiet house. The house I built with my own hands. I wasn't angry. I was just disappointed. Empty, like a gas tank, run dry in the middle of nowhere. Stranded, alone. The drive home that night was long and silent. The hum of the engine, usually a comfort, felt mournful. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was the heavy, oppressive silence of realizing you are alone, truly alone. The silence of grief, grief for the daughter I'd lost. Jessica hadn't always been like this. She used to be my girl. She hung out at the shop. She loved the tools, the smell of oil. She proudly told her friends that her daddy could fix anything. I thought I could fix this too. I was wrong. Some things, once broken, can never be the same. But then she met Tom. She entered his world of finance and country clubs. A world where money was the only currency. A gap opened between us. It widened with every passing year, every missed phone call, every condescending remark. She was slipping away, and I didn't know how to stop it. The erosion started subtly, like a slow leak in a tire. Easy to ignore until you find yourself stranded on the side of the road. And I was stranded. The road ahead looked dark, empty. First, it was the invitations that dried up. The casual family barbecues were replaced by formal events. Events I wasn't suited for, events where I didn't belong. We're just having a few people from Tom's firm over, Dad, she'd say. Her voice too bright, too cheerful. It's all shop talk. You'd be bored. I wasn't bored. I just didn't fit the image. I was the reliable sedan in their high-performance lifestyle. They wanted a Ferrari, and I was a rusty pickup truck. Then came the criticism. The subtle attempts to tune me up to their standards. I remember one dinner at their country club. I was wearing my best suit, the one I wore to her mother's funeral. I thought I looked respectable. I was wrong. Tom leaned over halfway through the appetizer. His voice was low, confidential, but loud enough for everyone at the table to hear. Mike, he said, flicking his hand dismissively at my chest. That tie, it's a bit dated. We need to get you to my tailor. Jessica flushed red, not defending me, embarrassed by me. I felt small, insignificant. The expensive food tasted like cardboard in my mouth. I realized then that I would never be good enough for them, no matter how hard I tried. The worst incident happened at Leo's school. It still haunted me. I remember picking him up one afternoon. I'd come straight from the shop, tired but happy to see my grandson. Leo ran towards me, shouting, "Grandpa!" His joy was pure, unfiltered. Jessica met me at the gates. Her face was tight with disapproval. This was where the shame became undeniable. The moment I knew she was truly lost to me. She didn't hug me. She didn't say hello. She just stared at my jacket. Then she quickly wiped a smudge of grease from my cheek with her thumb. Her touch wasn't gentle. It was harsh, clinical, as if my livelihood was contagious. A disease she didn't want spreading in her perfect world.
Did you have to come here looking like that?
She hissed, looking around nervously, her eyes darting around the parking lot, checking if anyone saw me. Like what?
Like I work for a living? I snapped back.
The exhaustion fueled my rare display of anger. People talk, Dad, she said, her voice cold. This school is important for Leo's future. And for Tom's connections. Appearances matter. Appearances. Her new god. I just stared at her. The sting of her words hit harder than any physical blow. She was ashamed of me. Ashamed of the work that had paid for her education. Her wedding. Her privileged life. That day, something inside I broke. Something fundamental. The bond between a father and daughter. Shattered. But the biggest shift, the one that truly changed the dynamic, was when she suggested I sell the shop. It was the business I built from the ground up. 40 years of my life. My legacy. My identity. It was the only thing I had left. We were at an expensive lunch. She insisted on paying. The irony was lost on her. She sat across from me, looking elegant, polished. A stranger. It's too much stress for you, Dad, she argued, sipping her sparkling water. You're working too hard. You should be relaxing. You could sell the land to a developer, she continued, her eyes bright with ambition. Not for me. For herself. Make a nice profit. Retire. Travel. She painted a picture of a life I didn't want. A life of leisure. A life without purpose. I resisted. The shop was my anchor. But as the years went by, the work got harder. I was tired. Eventually, I started to consider it. Maybe she was right. Maybe it was time to slow down. I was fooling myself. Looking back, I realized the truth. She wasn't trying to help me. She was trying to erase me. I was a reminder of the middle-class roots she was so desperate to escape. Retirement was the box she used to tuck me away, out of sight, out of mind, disposable. And on Christmas Eve, she finally succeeded in making me feel worthless. But life has a strange way of balancing the scales. Sometimes the universe hands you a wrench when you least expect it, a very large wrench. 2 days after Christmas, I was sitting at my kitchen table, drinking lukewarm coffee. The lottery ticket was lying next to the sugar bowl. That $10 insult. I hadn't looked at it since that night. I picked it up. I grabbed a quarter. I started scratching off the silver coating. I never played the lottery. It felt like paying for hope, and hope was something I was running short on lately. Hope felt like a luxury I couldn't afford. The first box showed a star, the second, another star. My hand stopped. I scratched the third. A star. 3 stars. $100. Okay, better than nothing. At least I made a profit on her gift. A small smile touched my lips. The irony was bitter, but still amusing. I kept scratching. The numbers below were the jackpot draw. I checked the newspaper I had picked up earlier. I unfolded it slowly, my hands steady. I wasn't expecting anything. The numbers in the paper: 5, 14, 21, 33, 48, 11. I looked at my ticket. I blinked. My eyes must be playing tricks on me. I rubbed them, looked again. The numbers were the same. I checked the date on the ticket. I checked the date on the newspaper. Everything matched. My heart started pounding. A slow, heavy beat against my ribs. The prize listed was $150 million. My heart hammered now. A frantic, uneven rhythm. It felt like an engine throwing a rod. I couldn't breathe. The air in the kitchen suddenly felt thin, scarce. I gasped for air. The room spun slightly. I stood up, my chair scraped against the floor. I paced the room. I checked the numbers again, and again, and again. 10 times, 20 times. They didn't change. This wasn't real. This couldn't be real. This was a $10 joke gift, an insult wrapped in shiny paper. It couldn't be the answer to all my prayers. It couldn't be my salvation. After an hour of sheer panic, the reality started to sink in. The numbers weren't changing. The ticket was real. I was rich. Filthy rich. Richer than Mr. Sterling. Richer than Tom. Richer than all of them combined. The realization was staggering. My first instinct, born of years of habit, was to call Jessica, to share the news with my daughter, my only family. It was the biggest mistake of my life. A mistake that almost cost me everything. I picked up the phone. My hands were shaking. I dialed her number, the number I knew by heart. "Dad? Everything okay?" she answered. She sounded distracted. I heard the faint sound of a Pilates instructor in the background. She was always busy living the life I paid for. "Jessica, I think I won," I stammered. My voice felt unfamiliar to my own ears. Shaky, weak, I couldn't get the words out. "Won what?" "The $10 ticket." "Great, Dad. What did you get? $50?" She laughed. A short, dismissive laugh. The sound grated on my nerves. "Listen, I'm in the middle of a session." "No, Jessica. The big one. The jackpot." My voice was barely a whisper. I was afraid to say it out loud. Afraid it would disappear. Silence. A heavy, loaded silence. I could hear her breathing. Short, shallow breaths. "Dad, that's not funny," she said, her voice suddenly sharp. Accusatory. "Don't joke about things like that." "I'm serious. I checked the numbers 100 times. Says that's $150 million. I read the numbers out loud. 5, 14, 21, 33, 48, 11. The silence on the other end stretched. But it wasn't filled with joy. It wasn't filled with disbelief. It was calculating. I could almost hear the gears turning in her head, the sound of greed clicking into place, the sound of opportunity knocking. "Okay," she said finally. Her voice dropped to a low, urgent whisper. "Don't move. Don't talk to anyone. Don't even answer the door. Tom and I are coming over. Right now." She hung up. No congratulations. No "oh my God, Dad." No "I love you." Just orders. They weren't coming to celebrate. They were coming to take control. They were coming for the money. And just like that, the engine of my life roared into overdrive. I finally had the leverage, the power. I finally had the means to teach my daughter a lesson. She would never forget, and I would use every penny of it to dismantle the fake world she loved more than the father who kept her running. The battle had begun. They arrived 30 minutes later. They burst into my quiet house like a SWAT team. The doors slammed against the wall. Tom, usually polished and calm, looked frantic. His eyes darted around my small kitchen, as if assessing its value, as if he was already planning the renovations. His greed was palpable. Jessica rushed in. Her expensive perfume filled the space. It suffocated me. Her eyes were wide. Not with happiness, but with a terrifying intensity. A hunger I had never seen before. She looked like a predator who had cornered its prey. "Show us the ticket," Tom demanded. He didn't say hello, he just held out his hand. Expectant, entitled, as if the ticket belonged to him. I handed it over. Slowly, reluctantly. They scrutinized it. Under the kitchen light, they whispered to each other, their voices low and urgent. They were excluding me already. I was just the delivery boy. "It looks real," Tom muttered. His voice was tight, barely concealed excitement. He kept adjusting his expensive cuffs. The nervous habit. The tell, he was already spending the money in his head. "Okay, this changes everything," Jessica said, turning to me. She wasn't congratulating me. She wasn't hugging me. She was formulating a plan, a business strategy. I wasn't her father anymore. I was an asset. "We need to handle this carefully," she continued, her tone shifting into lecture mode. The tone she used when she thought I was being slow. "We need lawyers, financial advisors, the best ones. Tom's firm has the best," Tom added quickly, his eyes gleaming. "We'll call Peterson. He handles high net worth individuals. Peterson, I knew the name. A shark. A ruthless lawyer who specialized in protecting the rich from the consequences of their actions." Jessica nodded curtly. "You can't just claim this yourself, Dad. You'll be swarmed. You'll make mistakes. You don't understand how this works." Mistakes. She thought I was incapable. Stupid. The assumption stung. "I know how to handle myself, Jessica," I said. A spark of defensiveness ignited in my chest. I had run a successful business for 40 years. I knew how to manage money. I wasn't a child. I wasn't helpless. Dad, this is $150 million. She snapped. Her patience was already wearing thin, the mask of concern slipping away. This isn't fixing a flat tire or balancing a checkbook. This is real money. We need to protect you. She paused, then added the kicker, the phrase that revealed their true intentions. Protect the assets. The assets. Not my money. The assets. It felt like a cold slap. I was just the vehicle carrying their fortune. They didn't care about me. They cared about the money. We'll set up a trust, Tom said. He was already on his phone, scrolling through his contacts, making calls, taking charge. A blind trust. We'll manage it for you. You won't have to worry about a thing. We'll take care of everything. They were taking over in the space of 10 minutes. My incredible fortune had become their project, their property. They were stealing my money before I even had it. They were stealing my life. The betrayal wasn't that they wanted the money. It was the insidious assumption that I was incapable of managing it, that I was too old, too working class, too stupid. They saw me exactly as they saw that $10 ticket, cheap, flimsy, and needing their expert handling to realize its true value. I felt that familiar ache in my chest, the shame, the humiliation, the feeling of being worthless. I should have stopped them right there. I should have thrown them out of my house. But I was still in shock. The money felt unreal, and a part of me, a small foolish part, still wanted their approval, still wanted my daughter back, still believed she loved me. That was my first mistake, but it wouldn't be my last. The nightmare was just beginning. The following weeks were a blur, meetings with lawyers and accountants, all from Tom's firm, of course. I was shuttled between sleek, modern offices, surrounded by mahogany and leather, the air thick with the smell of money and arrogance. I felt like a prisoner being transported between facilities. I felt the weight of their condescension pressing down on me like a hydraulic lift. They explained complex financial structures, tax shelters, investment strategies. They used jargon I didn't understand, deliberately confusing me, making me feel small. They barely made eye contact with me. They treated me like an idiot. They talked about me as if I wasn't in the room. I was the source of the wealth. But I was treated like an ignorant child, incapable of understanding the adult world of high finance. Their world, a world I wanted no part of. I met Mr. Peterson, Tom's lawyer. He was exactly as I imagined. A shark in an expensive suit, cold eyes, a grip that felt like a vise. He looked at me like I was a stain on the carpet, a stain he was paid to remove. "Mike," he said, his voice smooth as oil, but with an undercurrent of steel, "our goal here is to maximize the potential of this windfall while minimizing your exposure." "My exposure to what?" I asked, my voice sounding small even to my own ears. "Taxes, lawsuits, bad investments," Peterson replied, spreading his hands wide. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "The world is full of people who will try to take advantage of someone in your position. Someone like you," he meant. "Someone old, someone simple, someone who didn't belong." He was describing himself. Jessica and Tom insisted on absolute secrecy. They were terrified the news would leak. They said it would damage their carefully curated reputation. They didn't want the world to know their wealth came from a $10 lottery ticket. From me, their working-class father. The irony was suffocating, but their control tightened around me, suffocating me with their protection. They monitored my calls. They screened my visitors. They insisted on accompanying me everywhere. I was a prisoner in a gilded cage, a prisoner in my own life. And they were the wardens. They started isolating me, cutting me off from the world. I tried to talk to David, my old shop foreman. He was my oldest friend, the brother I never had. He called one afternoon. "Mike, how are you doing? Haven't seen you at the diner lately," David said, his voice warm and familiar. A connection to my past. Before I could answer, Jessica grabbed the phone from my hand. Her grip was surprisingly strong. "Hi, David. Dad's busy right now," she said, her voice sickly sweet. the fake voice she used for strangers. He's adjusting to retirement. I'll have him call you back. She hung up. She didn't even wait for his reply. Dad, you can't talk to him, she scolded, her expression hardening. The sweet mask gone, replaced by the cold, calculating woman she had become. He's a gossip. The whole town will know by tomorrow. He's my friend, Jessica, I argued, my voice weak, defeated. Friends are a liability right now, Dad, she said, her voice cold. Final. Trust us. We know what we're doing. I felt a chill crawl at my spine. They were cutting me off from everyone I trusted, everyone who cared about me. They were cornering me, isolating me, making me dependent on them. It was a calculated strategy, and it was working. The breaking point came during a meeting about the proposed family trust. We were sitting in a large boardroom. The city skyline stretched out beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows. I felt small, insignificant. The height made me dizzy. Mr. Peterson was explaining the terms of the trust. He wore a suit that looked like armor. He paced the room like a general surveying a battlefield. We believe it's in your best interest, Tom explained smoothly, his voice radiating confidence. The confidence of a con man closing a deal. He adjusted his cuffs again. The tell, if Jessica and I are the sole trustees, this ensures the assets are managed professionally and protected from external influences. External influences. He meant me, protected from me, the owner of the money. Wait a minute, I interrupted. My voice was louder than I intended. It cracked with emotion. The sound echoed in the silent room. Why wouldn't I be a trustee? It's my money, Jessica sighed, a theatrical display of the burden I had become. She exchanged a look with Tom, a look that said, here we go again, a look of impatience, of disgust. Dad, we've been over this, she said, her voice strained, patronizing. We want you to enjoy the money without the stress. Relax, travel, we can handle the complicated parts. You don't understand this world. Her words dripped with condescension. I'm not incompetent, Jessica. I ran a business for 40 years. I understand contracts. I understand investments. My voice was rising. I couldn't stop it. The anger, the frustration, the betrayal. It was all boiling over. This is different, Tom said, his voice cold, dismissive. He looked at me like I was a stubborn child. This level of wealth requires expertise you simply don't have. We are trying to protect you from making mistakes. Costly mistakes. Mistakes? Like what? I demanded. The anger was rising in my chest. A volcano about to blow. The pressure gauge was hitting the red zone. I stood up. I couldn't sit there anymore. Jessica leaned forward. Her expression shifted into one of practiced concern. Her eyes softened. Her voice dropped to a whisper. This was the moment. The act of unnecessary cruelty I hadn't seen coming. The emotional manipulation that shattered the last remnants of my hope. The moment they tried to break me completely. The moment they declared war. She reached across the table. She put her hand on mine. It felt cold, calculated, like the touch of a snake. Mr. Peterson watched, impassive, a silent accomplice. Tom adjusted his cuffs again. The tell. They were united in this lie. They had planned this. Dad, she said softly, her voice dripping with false sympathy. The sound made me sick. We're worried about you. You're getting older. Your memory isn't what it used to be. She paused, letting the words sink in, twisting the knife. You forget appointments. You get confused easily. We don't want people taking advantage of you. She looked me straight in the eye, the coldness returning, the mask back in place. And frankly, Dad, we don't think you're mentally equipped to handle this kind of responsibility. It's too much pressure. It's your own good. The words hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. Senile, incompetent. It was a calculated move, designed to strip me of my agency, my dignity, my very identity. They were trying to hotwire my life, taking the keys and leaving me stranded. They were trying to destroy me, to make me disappear. The room fell silent. The air felt thin and cold. I looked at my daughter, the little girl I had taught to drive, the girl who used to hand me tools in the garage. The girl I loved more than life itself. I didn't recognize the woman staring back at me. The ambition in her eyes had curdled into something cruel, something monstrous. She was a stranger, a beautiful, terrifying stranger, and she was my enemy. I stood up again. My chair scraped loudly against the marble floor. The sound echoed in the silent room, a declaration of defiance. "The meeting is over," I said. My voice trembled with rage, a rage so deep it scared me. "Dad, sit down. We need to finalize this," Jessica insisted, her voice sharp.
Authoritative.
The voice of a boss talking to an employee, the voice of someone in control. "No, I'm done." I walked out of the office. The silence followed me like a shroud. I didn't look back. I couldn't. If I looked back, I would crumble. In the elevator, I leaned against the wall. My reflection stared back at me from the polished metal doors. I looked old, tired, defeated. They had broken me, or so they thought. They had already tried to strip me of my history, my livelihood, and now they were trying to strip me of my sanity. I felt a profound sense of loss. Grief for the daughter I thought I knew. The daughter I knew was dead. This woman was an imposter. My hand went to my pocket. My fingers brushed against the worn leather of my old keychain. Attached to it was a small, silver wrench, a gift from Jessica when she was 10, a relic from another life. Suddenly, a memory surfaced, sharp and clear, cutting through the fog of despair. Jessica, standing in the garage, her face smeared with grease, her eyes bright with triumph. We had just rebuilt an old carburetor, a difficult job. "We did it, Daddy," she had shouted, beaming with pride. "We fixed it together. You're the best mechanic in the whole world." The memory anchored me, reminded me of who I was, what I was capable of. The elevator doors opened. I walked out into the bustling city street. The noise and chaos washed over me, but my mind was suddenly calm, focused, clear. I wasn't broken. I wasn't incompetent. I was a mechanic, and it was time to start fixing what was broken. But first, I had to tear it all down, brick by brick, lie by lie. The cold air hit my face, snapping me out of the daze. The shock gave way to a cold, hard resolve. I realized I couldn't fight this battle alone. I needed help. I needed allies. Jessica and Tom had an army of lawyers. They had the advantage of my own emotional vulnerability, and they had the ruthless determination of desperate people. I needed backup. I needed a plan. I needed someone I could trust. Someone who understood the value of loyalty, integrity, someone who wasn't blinded by greed. I called David, my old shop foreman, the friend Jessica had tried to cut me off from, the most loyal man I knew. "Mike, is that really you?" David asked, his voice surprised, relieved. "Your daughter said you were busy." I was worried. "I was, David, but I'm not anymore," I said, the words catching in my throat, the emotion overwhelming me. "I need help. I need Sarah. I need someone on my side." Sarah was David's daughter, a sharp, honest lawyer who specialized in estate planning. She didn't work for a big, flashy firm like Peterson's. She worked for people, real people, people like me. We met the next day at Sarah's office. It was smaller and less imposing than Tom's firm, filled with books and the comforting smell of old paper. It felt safe. I felt safe. For the first time in weeks. I told her everything. The lottery win. The proposed trust. Jessica's accusation of consent. The systematic way they had tried to dismantle my life. The betrayal. The lies. The isolation. Sarah listened patiently. Her expression grew darker with every detail. She wasn't polished like Peterson. She was real, and she was angry. Her anger fueled my own. "They're trying to establish a de facto conservatorship," she explained. Her voice was tight with anger. "Using your age as leverage. It's predatory, Mike. It's elder abuse." She validated my feelings. She confirmed my fears. I wasn't crazy. "I want control of my money, Sarah. I want my life back." My voice was firm, determined. The weakness gone, replaced by resolve. "Then we fight." Sarah said, simply. We tear down their case, piece by piece. We take the engine apart and find the fault. I liked the way she thought, like a mechanic. The first step was claiming the lottery prize myself. We bypassed Jessica and Tom completely. Sarah handled the logistics, setting up a secure account, managing the media attention. It was a surgical strike, clean and precise. We moved quickly, silently, before they knew what hit them. The press conference was overwhelming. The flashing lights, the shouting reporters, stark contrast to the quiet solitude of my previous life. But I stood tall, Sarah by my side, a fortress against the storm. When asked what I planned to do with the money, I looked straight into the camera. I knew Jessica and Tom were watching. Invest in things that last, I said. I was thinking about loyalty, integrity, things Jessica and Tom knew nothing about. When the news broke, Jessica and Tom were furious. They called me repeatedly. Their messages swung between threats of legal action and desperate pleas for reconciliation. They were losing control, and they were terrified. Dad, how could you do this to us? Jessica screamed in one voicemail. Her voice hysterical. We were trying to help you. You've ruined everything. You're making a huge mistake, Mike, Tom threatened in another, his voice cold, menacing. Peterson will bury you in court. You'll be left with nothing. I ignored them all. I deleted the messages. I blocked their numbers. The silence was my first boundary, the first firewall installed in my new life. The silence was my power, and it was driving them crazy. But Sarah and I knew they wouldn't give up easily. This level of greed wasn't rational, it was primal. Desperate. We needed to understand why they were so desperate for control. What were they hiding? It felt like more than just the desire for wealth. There was something else hiding beneath the surface. A darker secret. Something rotten under the hood. I could smell it. The scent of burning oil. The smell of a failing engine. Let's look into their financials, Sarah suggested. We were sitting in her office, drinking coffee. The calm before the next storm. If they're pushing this hard, there might be a reason. People rarely resort to such extreme measures unless they have something to hide. If this story is keeping you hooked, drop a like. It helps more than you know, because the truth we uncovered was darker than I ever imagined. Sarah hired a forensic accountant, a man named Alan Chen. He was quiet, precise, cold as steel. He specialized in finding money hidden in the shadows. He didn't deal in emotions. He dealt in numbers, and the numbers didn't lie. What Alan found was staggering. This was the deeper betrayal, the hidden truth that redefined everything, the rotten core beneath the polished facade. The reason for their desperation. Alan sat across from me, a thick file open on the desk. The file contained the ruins of Jessica and Tom's life. Beecher Miller, he began, his voice flat, emotionless. Your daughter and son-in-law are not just living beyond their means. They are drowning in debt. He pointed to a spreadsheet. Numbers swimming before my eyes. Red numbers. Millions of dollars in debt. The mansion is mortgaged to the hilt. The luxury cars are leased. The designer clothes. The expensive private school. It's all a house of cards, built on a foundation of lies and leverage. I listened, the pieces starting to click into place. The desperation, the urgency, the need for control. It all made sense now. They were desperate people, doing desperate things. But that's not the worst part, Alan continued. He turned the page, the revelation that changed everything, the revelation that destroyed any remaining shred of respect I had for them. Tom has made several disastrous investments, high-risk ventures that collapsed. He lost millions. His own money? I asked, though I already knew the answer. My stomach churned. No, Alan said, looking me straight in the eye. His gaze unflinching. He embezzled money from his clients to cover the losses. He's been cooking the books for years. He's a thief. The air rushed out of my lungs. Embezzlement. Fraud. My son-in-law was a criminal, and my daughter was his accomplice. They are on the verge of bankruptcy, Alan concluded, facing financial ruin, public humiliation, and potential jail time for Tom. The SEC is already sniffing around. We received an anonymous tip this morning from a junior associate at Tom's firm. It's only a matter of time before they are caught. The junior associate, someone else caught in the wreckage of their greed. They hadn't just wanted my money. They needed it. The lottery win wasn't a bonus. It was a lifeline. A way out of the mess they had created. A way to avoid the consequences of their actions. And the $18,000 cruise for Mr. Sterling? Likely paid for with stolen funds, Allen confirmed. A desperate attempt to keep up appearances, to tend the illusion of wealth while their world crumbled around them. The facade was everything, even if it was built on theft. The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow. The pity I'd felt for their greed turned into a cold, hard anger, a righteous fury. They were worse than I thought. They were willing to sacrifice my dignity, my independence, my very sanity, all for their failing facade. They weren't just entitled, they were criminals, and they were using my love for my daughter as leverage, as a weapon against me. That was the ultimate betrayal. The silence between us stretched for weeks. The money was safely deposited into a new account. Only I controlled it, protected by the legal fortress Sarah had built around me. They couldn't touch it. They couldn't touch me. Jessica and Tom, realizing their legal threats were empty, changed tactics. It switched from aggression to manipulation. The most dangerous weapon of all, they knew my weakness. They knew the chink in my armor. I received a text message from an unknown number. "Dad, please, we need to talk. Leo misses you. He keeps asking for you. Let's meet at the house. We need to fix this." They were using Leo, the one person I still loved unconditionally, my grandson. It was a low blow, a desperate move. A move that showed how little they cared about him, too. He was just a pawn in their game. I knew it was a trap, but I agreed. I needed to face them, to confront the truth, but this time, on my terms. I needed to see the look on their faces when they realized they had lost. When they realized I knew everything. When they realized the game was over. I arrived at the mansion with Sarah. I wasn't going into this alone. I needed a witness. I needed protection. I needed her strength. The glass and steel entryway felt colder than ever. A mausoleum of greed and betrayal. A monument to their arrogance. The house that shame built. Jessica and Tom were waiting in the living room. Their faces were pale and strained, their smiles tight and forced. They looked like cornered animals, desperate, dangerous. Leo was nowhere in sight. They had lied about him, too. The lie stung more than I expected. "Dad," Jessica started. Her voice trembled. A performance of remorse. An Oscar-worthy performance. "We are so sorry. We handled this all wrong. We were just trying to protect you. We were scared." "Protect me? By implying I was senile? By trying to steal my money?" I asked. My voice was calm but firm, devoid of emotion. I wasn't giving them anything. No anger, no pity, just cold, hard truth. "That was a mistake," Tom interjected quickly. His eyes darted nervously towards Sarah. He knew who she was. He knew he was in trouble. He adjusted his cuffs again. The tell. He was sweating. We were stressed. We weren't thinking clearly. The pressure. Stressed about what, Tom? I asked, looking him straight in the eye. I watched him squirm, the polished facade cracking under the pressure. He flinched. The business. The market. It's been volatile. The lies came easily to him. "I'm not talking about the market, Tom," I said, my voice hardening. "I'm talking about the failing investments. The mounting debt." Jessica gasped. Her hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with fear. "I'm talking about the embezzlement," I continued, the word hanging in the air like a guillotine, ready to drop. The impending investigation by the SEC. They both recoiled as if I had struck them. The color drained from Jessica's face. The mask slipped, revealing the desperation beneath. The terror, the realization that they were caught. "How did you know?" she whispered. Her voice trembled with fear. She was terrified, The predator had become the prey. I know everything, I said. I know the facade you have built is crumbling. I know you needed my money to save yourselves. I know the true cost of your lies. Jessica started to cry, real tears. This time, tears of fear, of loss, of realization. The game was over, and they had lost everything.
Dad, please, she begged, reaching out for me, her hand trembling. We're desperate. They're going to take everything. The house, the cars, everything. Tom stepped forward, his arrogance gone, replaced by a pathetic desperation. He was sweating profusely now. His expensive suit looked cheap.
Ruined. Mike, please, help us. We'll do anything. We'll sign anything. He was groveling. The man who thought he was superior to everyone was begging for mercy. Tom could go to jail, Jessica sobbed. She looked around the massive room, the room she loved more than me, the room that symbolized everything she valued. We'll be ruined. Our reputation, Leo's future. You ruined yourselves, I said. The words were harsh but true. You prioritized status over substance. You looked down on the very foundations that built you. You treated me like an embarrassment, a burden. This was the moment, the confrontation where all the lies were exposed. The masks ripped off. I looked around the cold room, the monument to their greed, the prison they built for themselves, and then I knew what I had to do. This was the twist, the lesson they would never forget, the poetic justice that would resonate long after the money was gone, the perfect revenge, a revenge that would teach them the value of hard work, the value of an honest dollar. Okay, I said, my voice calm, measured. I will help you. Relief washed over their faces, so profound it was almost comical. They thought they were saved. Jessica rushed forward to hug me, her tears soaking my shirt. Oh, thank you, Dad. Thank you, she cried. We knew you wouldn't abandon us. We knew you still loved us. I didn't return the hug. I stood there, stiff and unresponsive, letting her cling to me for a moment before gently pushing her away. I wasn't sure if I loved them anymore. Love felt like a distant memory. I will clear your debts, I said, my voice devoid of emotion. The ones not related to the embezzlement. You're on your own with the SEC, Tom. Tom nodded eagerly. Any reprieve was better than none. He was still thinking about himself, only himself. And I will ensure Leo's future is secure, I continued. How? Tom asked. The calculating mind already working, the greed flickering back to life. A trust, a gift.
He still thought he was getting the money.
He still thought he could He still thought he could manipulate me. I'm setting up an ironclad trust for Leo. Tuition, healthcare, a substantial inheritance when he turns 25. You will have no access to it, ever. They were relieved. They thought they had won. They thought the bailout they craved was finally within their grasp. They were wrong. They underestimated me. Again, and for you, I continued, turning to Jessica and Tom, my voice hardening. I am offering you a job, both of you. They looked confused. The concept of a job was foreign to them. A job? What kind of job? Jessica asked, her voice hesitant. At my old shop, I said. I bought it back. I'm expanding it. I need mechanics, and I need someone to manage the office. The triumph turned to horror. The realization dawned on them. This was the climax. The moment their world truly ended. The moment their punishment began. Tom laughed. A short, ugly sound. A sound of disbelief. He looked at Jessica, then back at me. As if waiting for the punchline. The silence stretched. The smile slowly faded from his face as he realized I wasn't joking. A mechanic? Are you serious? Tom scoffed, the arrogance resurfacing for a fleeting moment. I have an MBA. I'm an investment banker. Not anymore. You're not, I said, my voice quiet but final. You're a disgraced, bankrupt embezzler facing disbarment and potential jail time. This is your chance to learn an honest trade, to rebuild your life from the ground up, starting at minimum wage. Tom's face turned red, his jaw clenched. He realized I was serious. I realized This was his only way out. The man who valued appearances above all else was facing a life of grease and hard labor. The humiliation was exquisite. I turned to Jessica. And you will manage the office. Answering phones, scheduling appointments, dealing with customers. You will learn the value of hard work, the importance of humility. We can't do this, Jessica whispered, the horror dawning on her, the full weight of the consequences crashing down on her. This is humiliating. Humiliating? I asked. The word tasted like ash in my mouth. I took a step closer to her. Humiliation is valuing your father at $10. Humiliation is implying he's senile to steal his money. Humiliation is prioritizing a facade over the man who gave you everything. I paused, looking at the daughter I no longer knew. The daughter who had broken my heart. Jessica is a lesson in reality, a lesson in consequences. The fallout was swift and brutal. Tom, facing the inevitability of his crimes being exposed, took a plea deal. Sarah made sure the SEC knew everything Alan had found. The anonymous tip helped accelerate the investigation. He avoided jail time. But he was stripped of his licenses, ordered to pay restitution. His reputation was ruined. His career over. He was a public disgrace. The man who lived for status was now a pariah. Jessica and Tom, stripped of their status symbols, were forced to sell the mansion. It sold for less than they owed. They had to face the reality of their situation. They moved into a small apartment near the shop. The country club friends, the high society connections, they disappeared overnight. Like smoke. Wealth is a fickle friend. Loyalty is priceless. They had neither. They started working at the shop. It was a painful adjustment. The grease, the long hours, the demanding customers. It was a stark contrast to their previous life of luxury and leisure. But they had no choice. It was either this or complete ruin. They were starting over. From the bottom, I watched Tom struggle to change a tire. His soft hands bleeding, his expensive shoes covered in oil. He cursed under his breath. Frustrated, humiliated. There was a certain satisfaction in seeing the man who thought he was above it all brought down to earth, brought back to reality. I stood in the bustling shop. The sound of impact wrenches and engine analyzers filled the air. The smell of oil and sweat. The sounds and smells of honest work. The victory felt bittersweet. I had saved my daughter from complete destruction, but the relationship we once had was gone, replaced by a strained professional courtesy. The realization brought a profound sadness, a deep, aching grief for the little girl I once knew. The girl with the grease-stained face and the bright eyes. She was gone forever. The following months were a period of transformation, not just for Jessica and Tom, but for me too. The money, once a source of conflict and pain, now felt like a responsibility, a tool to build something meaningful, something that would last, something that truly mattered. I expanded the shop, turning it into a state-of-the-art facility. But I didn't stop there. I wanted to create a legacy, something that would honor the trade that had given me everything, the work that Jessica had once been so ashamed of. With a significant portion of the lottery winnings, I established a foundation, providing scholarships and apprenticeships for young people interested in the trades, giving them a chance to build an honest life, a life with purpose. I bought an old warehouse next to the shop. I converted it into a trade school, teaching the next generation of mechanics, electricians, and carpenters. The future, I spent my days there, teaching, mentoring, sharing the knowledge and experience I had accumulated over 40 years. I found a new purpose, a new passion. I found joy in the smell of oil, the sound of engines roaring to life, the eager faces of the students, their eyes bright with hope and determination. I was building something real, something honest, not a facade. I was fixing things again. One afternoon, a year after the confrontation, Jessica came into my office. She looked different. Her hair was pulled back, her clothes practical. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a weary humility. She looked tired, but real. She held Leo's hand. The little boy looked around the workshop with wide, curious eyes. He reminded me of Jessica when she was young. The resemblance was uncanny. "Dad?" she called out hesitantly. I looked up from the engine schematic I was reviewing. "Jessica, I heard what you did with the trade school. It's amazing." Her voice was sincere. "Thank you." The silence between us was awkward, heavy with unspoken words, unhealed wounds. I wanted to apologize," she stammered. Tears welled in her eyes. Real tears. "For everything. The way I treated you. The things I said. I was lost, Dad. I was so caught up in that world. The pressure, the expectations. I forgot what truly mattered. I listened quietly, the words hanging in the air between us. Words I had waited a long time to hear. Were they real, or just another performance? I didn't know. I wasn't ready to forgive, but maybe I was ready to listen. "Tom and I are working hard," she continued. "He's becoming a good mechanic. He's finding pride in the work. And I'm learning. It's not easy, but it's honest. We're rebuilding." She paused, looking down at Leo. "And Leo, he loves it here. He loves watching you work. He says he wants to be a mechanic, just like his grandpa." My heart ached. I missed the family I thought I had. The love I thought was unconditional. But maybe, just maybe, we could build a new one, a stronger one, built on honesty and hard work, built on truth. "You can bring him here," I said softly, my voice thick with emotion. "Anytime. I can teach him how to change the oil." Jessica nodded, the relief evident on her face. A fragile smile touching her lips, a glimmer of hope in the wreckage of our relationship. A small spark in the darkness. The relationship with Jessica was never fully repaired. The scars ran too deep, the betrayal too profound. We didn't have Sunday dinners. We didn't talk on the phone every day. We couldn't go back to the way things were. But we found a fragile peace, a quiet understanding, a tentative truce built on the ruins of our past. We were survivors of a storm we created, bound by blood and shared trauma. The final closure came on the day the first class graduated from the trade school. I stood on the stage, looking out at the proud faces of the graduates and their families. Room buzzing with energy and optimism, a future built on hard work and skill. Leo was sitting in the front row, beaming at me, clapping louder than anyone else. Jessica and Tom sat next to him, their expressions a mixture of pride and humility. They had learned their lesson the hard way. They looked like people who worked for a living, their hands rough, their clothes simple, and there was dignity in that. A dignity they had never known before. After the ceremony, I walked through the workshop. The sounds of celebration fading behind me. I stopped at a workbench, picking up a wrench, the metal cool and familiar in my hand, the tool of my trade, the symbol of my identity. I thought about the $10 lottery ticket, the $50 million, the painful journey it had taken me on, the destruction it had caused, the rebuilding it had allowed. I hadn't just won money. I had reclaimed my dignity. I hadn't just taught Jessica a lesson. I had learned one myself. True value isn't found in marble floors or luxury cruises. It's not found in designer suits or country clubs. It's not found in money. It's found in the work we do, the people we help, the legacy we leave behind. It's found in the integrity of an honest day's work, the satisfaction of fixing what is broken, and the enduring strength of family, rebuilt from the ground up, brick by brick. I was Mike, the mechanic, and I was finally at peace. Thanks for listening. Please rate our story in the comments. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe. Your support means a lot because your time matters.